What is the most unforgivable thing a family member has ever done to you? My brother falsely accused me of cheating, stole my wife, and got my whole family to disown me. I met my high school sweetheart Sarah when we were just 14 years old. We started dating right away and were inseparable throughout our teen years. My parents adored Sarah, welcoming her into the family as the daughter they never had. When we were 21, we found out Sarah was pregnant with our first child. Thrilled at the news, we got married soon after and went on to have 4 beautiful daughters together: Jane, Tori, Brianna, and Claire. Our journey as high school sweethearts to husband and wife has been an amazing one, filled with the joys and challenges of raising a family together. Through it all, our love has only grown stronger over the years. The only problem was my brother, Jack. Jack always had a crush on Sarah, and it kind of harmed my relationship with him, but I tried to let it go because he was my brother. Sarah also knew and had reassured me that she didn't have feelings for him. I was at my limit when Jack found out about me and Sarah's engagement and confessed his love for her and tried to convince her to leave me. She didn't and told me what had happened. At this point, I was ready to knock him out, but Sarah asked me not to. I was ready to cut my brother out of my life, and it took Sarah and my parents to convince me not to. My relationship with my brother improved after the incident, and I truly believed he had gotten over his crush on Sarah. Oh, was I mistaken? One day, more than 6 years ago, I arrived home after a week away due to work reasons and found my daughters, my wife, and my brother in the living room. Sarah and my daughters were crying, and when they saw me they started to scream at me. Sarah asked, "How could you have done this to me?" When I asked what she meant, she said cheating. I was surprised she accused me of cheating. Never in the 25 years we had been together had cheated on her. I asked what made her believe I cheated on her. And she showed me some pictures and texts that proved I had cheated on her with a colleague. I asked where she got this proof, and my brother jumped in saying that this coworker, who also was friends with him, had confessed to him and sent him the proof. I started crying and begged Sarah to believe me. I told her that this was Jack's doing. She slapped me in the face and kicked me out. Before I left, Jane and Tori called me all kinds of names. The one that pained me the most was "You are a disgrace to our family." For a long time, I tried to make Sarah and the girls see reason and make them understand that sadly it was all in vain. My parents disowned me, and my dad said if I was a man I would make the divorce easy. Before the end of the year, me and Sarah were already divorced and my daughters didn't want to see me. At the beginning of 2017, Sarah and Jack got married. My daughters sent me a message saying that they hated me and didn't want anything to do with me, and that they had a new father figure in their lives. It was hard, but with a lot of therapy I learned to move on. I always held hope that my family would find the truth, but I learned to live with the possibility they never would. 5 years went by without any contact with anyone from my family until a few days ago. I received a call from an unknown number. When I picked up I said, "Hello. Who's this?" And I heard sobs from the other side. It was my mom. She said they were sorry and wanted to meet me. I asked why, and my mom said my family had found the truth about everything, but this was a matter to be discussed personally. I told my mom that when, or if, I felt ready to meet them I would call her, but I didn't want to be contacted by anyone until or unless I said something back. She told she understood and that she missed me. We said our goodbyes, but to be honest, I still don't know what I should do. I arrived at my parents' Saturday morning. I rang the door and Mom opened it. She started crying and hugged me. It was a bit awkward for me. My dad gave me a handshake and I got in. My mom started to try to make small talk. She asked me how I was. She then commented that I looked way better and that I lost weight. I replied, "When you're depressed you forget to eat." I then asked how they found out. My mom said that Jack was drunk and had an argument with Sarah and something like, "I didn't plan all this just to put up with your crap." Sarah then forced him to confess. Sarah and my daughters wanted to contact me, but my mom said it would be better if just she contacted me. I started laughing. My dad was little mad and asked me what's so funny. I said that my brother probably spent years trying to separate me and Sarah and blew it all up. All he had to was be quiet and he could continue with his beautiful life. I then asked my parents if they could imagine how our lives be if they and Sarah didn't try to convince me to forgive my brother after he tried to convince Sarah to run with him. My dad started crying. It was the first time in my 45 years of life that I had seen my old man crying. He started to apologize, saying he was an awful father and that he, my mom, Sarah, and my daughters were all sorry. I was able to not cry and I told them that I would love to reconcile, but it would take time. My mom asked me if she could give the green light to Sarah to contact me and I said yes. They then asked more about my life as they wanted to know how I was doing. Overall, it was better than I expected. The next day, Sarah sent me a message and asked me if she could call me. I replied a few hours later that she could. Not even 5 minutes later, she called me. She asked me how I was. I told her that given the circumstances I could be worse. I asked how she and our daughters were. She said that they are not so good. After my brother confessed, Sarah and my daughters felt remorseful and kicked my brother out. I asked Sarah a few questions. Why did she marry Jack so quickly? How come she didn't believe me? She started crying. She said that during and after our divorce, my brother had been her rock. Sarah said that they eventually started dating and they got married because, and I was shocked to hear this, she got pregnant. I was a bit taken aback when I heard it. I asked if she could repeat it and she did. I told her that I needed time. I warned her that the chances of us getting back together are not looking good and I didn't want her to have false hope. She cried a bit more but said they understood. She ended the conversation with an "I love you, I just said goodbye." My mom was the bridge of communication between me and my daughters. I messaged her that I wanted to meet my daughters in a public place and she recommended a park and we met yesterday. When I got there, my daughters had already arrived. I only had a few seconds to process seeing them for the first time in more than half a decade because Jane, my 24-year-old, jumped on me. She was crying and kept saying she was sorry and asked me to don't hate them. We stayed hugged for a few minutes. It seemed like she didn't want to let me go. It took Claire, my 18-year-old, to take Jane off me. Tori, my 22-year-old, asked me how I was. I looked at her for a few seconds. I was still surprised to see how much she had grown over the years. But I also kind of saw the last 6 years flashing before my eyes. For a while after the divorce, I just looked at pictures of me, Sarah, and the girls together and remembered the good old days. I started wondering if living was still worth it. After a few seconds, I told Tori I had gotten a cat. I said that he was a great cat and my best friend and if it wasn't for him I wouldn't be speaking to her. As soon as I said this, all my daughters started crying. I was looking at them, crying on the inside but somehow still able to maintain my posture. They all said they were sorry for not believing me and begged me to forgive them. I told them I still love them more than anything but it would take time for me to truly forgive them and that they would have to show me by their actions and not their words how sorry they were. I noticed Jane was wearing a ring. I asked her about it. She told me she had gotten married to her longtime boyfriend 2 years ago. At this point, I was about to burst into tears knowing I had missed my daughter's wedding. I just asked if my brother had walked down the aisle and she quietly said yes. I just couldn't do it anymore and started crying my heart out. I had to sit down. That jerk stole everything I held dear and robbed me of one of the moments I was longing the most for. Walking my daughter down the aisle. I was ugly crying and I could tell Jane was sad as well. I told her that I would get over it and not to worry about it. She just hugged me again silently. We stayed like that for what seemed a long time. After we broke off the hug, Jane said she was sorry once again. I told my daughters that I needed a few days but I would like to go to family therapy with them. They agreed. Me and my daughters were catching up about each other's lives and it felt good to have a normal conversation with them. They gave me their phone number, we said our goodbyes and I hugged every single one of them tightly for a long time.